Breaking: New York City FC just made a huge announcement about Pulisic's future. New York City FC's own president just told you out loud that Christian Pulisic isn't walking through that door anytime soon. And in the same breath, he told you the entire league is dying for him to sign. Those two things do not fit together. Stay with that. Christian Pulisic is the biggest American name in European soccer, a $22 million move to AC Milan back in 2023 after 4 seasons at Chelsea. Milan is one of Italy's giant clubs. Think of them as soccer's version of a historic franchise with real trophies on the wall, not just a big name. NYCFC is one of MLS's flagship teams, owned by the same group that runs Manchester City. And on Thursday, July 16th, at an MLS media event in Manhattan, Brad Sims stood up and forced this whole thing into the open. Here's exactly what he said. If you ask any of my 29 counterparts across the league if they would be interested in having Christian Pulisic on their team, I'm pretty sure you'd get 29 yeses. 29 teams, 29 yeses. That's the pitch. That's the headline he wants you to walk away with. Now here's the sentence that undercuts it. Same press conference, same man. If AC Milan doesn't want to give him up, then it's dead in the water. Dead in the water, not we're close, not talks are progressing. Dead in the water from the guy running the pursuit. This isn't new information dressed up as news either. ESPN had already reported about a month earlier that Milan flatly rejected a New York City FC approach and said the player simply isn't available. So what actually happened on Thursday is New York City FC's president going public with a rejection they already knew about, wrapped in enough optimism to make it sound like momentum. Now let that sit for a second. Why would a club president stand in front of cameras and announce, essentially, we asked and they said no? Because the number underneath this is doing more work than the quote is. Pulisic's market valuation sits around $46 million per transfer marked. NYCFC's actual transfer record, the most they have ever paid for a single player, is Nicolas Fernandez last July for roughly $9.3 million. Read those two numbers again. $46 million versus $9.3 million. That's not a gap, that's a different sport entirely. So when Sims frames this as would love to have him, what he's not saying is how NYCFC would actually get there financially. The confirmed interest is real. The ability to close it based on their own history is not close to real. That's the detail that should change how you're watching this whole story. This isn't a transfer saga building toward a bid. It's a wish, stated publicly, next to a number that quietly contradicts it. Here's where it turns, though, because Milan's side of this is stranger than we said no and moved on. Milan is currently a club in turmoil. According to reporting around the club, the CEO, the sporting director, and the technical director have all been fired after Milan failed to qualify for the Champions League. The manager, Massimiliano Allegri, is out too. Ruben Amorim, formerly of Manchester United, is coming in to replace him. The only senior figure staying put through all of it is Zlatan Ibrahimovic, working as a special advisor. That's a front office torn down to the studs. And yet, in the middle of that chaos, Fabrizio Romano reports that Milan considers Pulisic untouchable, not will listen to offers, untouchable. Romano also says there are 0 actual contacts between Pulisic and any Premier League club right now, despite the noise. So picture that. An executive suite in shambles, a new manager walking into a rebuild, and the one certainty anyone at that club will state clearly is that this specific American player isn't for sale. A club that can't hold on to its own leadership is holding on to him like it's the last stable thing they've got. Now, why is this surfacing right now this week of all weeks? Because Pulisic himself is hurt, and the timing here matters more than it looks on the surface. Go back to July 6th. The USMNT loses to Belgium 4-1 in Seattle in the World Cup round of 16. It's the tournament that ends the Americans' run. In the 52nd minute, Pulisic strikes the leg of Belgium's captain Yuri Tielemans going for a shot. He stays in, hobbling, and comes off in the 59th minute for Sebastian Berhalter. Right after the match, here's what Pulisic told reporters. I just twisted my ankle and just sprained my ankle. It's just frustrating to end like that, of course, but now I've got time to rest, so it'll be okay. A sprain, that's what he called it. Live in the mixed zone minutes after walking off. It wasn't a sprain. Days later, after an x-ray and an MRI, U.S. Soccer put out the real diagnosis. A microfracture and bone bruise of the tibia and fibula in his right leg, not a tweak, a break. That gap, what he said, standing on the field versus what the scans actually showed, is the story underneath the story here. A player minimizing it in real time, a federation confirming the real damage 2 or 3 days later. So this transfer chatter isn't landing on a healthy in-form asset. It's landing on a 27-year-old with a fractured leg, 4 to 6 weeks removed from even resuming training, whose actual return target is Milan Serie A opener at Torino on August 23rd. That's the player NYCFC's president is publicly campaigning for. Here's one more piece that nobody's connecting, and it happened in the exact same room. At that same Thursday event, Sims also confirmed the opening date for NYCFC's long-delayed permanent stadium, Etihad Park, out in Queens, July 17th, 2027. 1 year, almost to the day, from when he made these comments. The club's entire nomadic history bouncing between Yankee Stadium and Citi Field since 2015 finally has an endpoint on the calendar. Now, nobody in the actual reporting has drawn a straight line between that stadium date and the Pulisic pursuit. Nobody said we're building this to land him. That's not a sourced claim, and it shouldn't be treated like one. But look at the calendar anyway. Pulisic's Milan contract runs through June of 2027, with a club option to extend it a year further. ESPN's own analysis notes his transfer value actually drops the closer that contract gets to running out, because a club would rather sell a year early than lose him for nothing. Milan's real advantage isn't this month. It sits somewhere out past 2027, right around when NYCFC finally has a stadium worth selling him on. So here's where this actually sits. No invention needed. On one side, a president saying 29 teams want this deal, immediately followed by admitting it's dead in the water. On the other, a club in complete institutional disarray calling this one player the single untouchable thing they've got left. In between, a player nursing a fractured leg he initially called a sprain, aiming to be back on a training pitch by August. Nothing here is close. Nothing here is confirmed beyond talk. What's confirmed is a rejection, a valuation gap 9 times over what NYCFC has ever spent on one player, and a contract clock that doesn't hit zero until 2027. Whatever happens next starts with whether Christian Pulisic is even fit to play for Milan again come August 23rd against Torino. Everything downstream of that, including whatever New York wants, waits on that answer first.